Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Canada is my adopted country and I'm amazed by the contradictions in this. This is a country which is supposed to be one of the richest countries in the world. And it is. If we take into consideration the resources, the natural resources, the human capital, it is one of the richest. If you look at the benefits that the bounty of nature has provided, it's a very rich country. And even otherwise, economically, it's one of the best countries in the world. Not the best, but of course, being a member of the G8 and G20 itself, it's a recognition of the fact that it's a rich country. But this is a country of contradictions. On the one side, we have people who are filthy rich. Not that I hate them, but the fact that they are rich shows their acumen, their capability. On the other side, unfortunately, are the people who have not the sufficient wherewithal to make both ends meet. Abject poverty of the people contrasts sharply with the moneyed people's lifestyle. If I look at the native Indians, the native Canadians, I'm shocked at their level of subsistence. But then why go far? Even in the metros like Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver, there are people living not in slums, but a life worse than that, living in slums, than poverty. The stark poverty that faces these people. Yesterday I talked about the poverty of the children. And naturally, while the children poverty is of the threefold, which I talked about, today I'm concentrating only on the economic poverty of their families. Until now, there has been no national strategy to slash Canadian poverty. Ultimately, the government comes up with a national strategy. And the aim is that by 2030, national poverty should be reduced by 50%. When the strategy was announced, I was pretty happy. But I went through the strategy, I found that it was all noise, lightning, sound, and fury, signifying nothing. It was full of cliches. It was full of false hopes, promises that cannot be kept, and nothing concrete about making the poor people live comfortably. Now, there are no details at all in the strategy how the funding would be there or which programs would be there, and there are no details how the aim to reduce poverty by 50% would be reached. It is very easy to proclaim from the housetops that you want to reduce poverty. But first, how you want to fund removal of poverty? Is it by giving more welfare, thereby taxing the wealthy still more? And you tax the wealthy still more, what are you doing is giving them an incentive not to work. Because if they know that a major portion of their income is going to be taken away for the state to feed some undeserving people, it's a disincentive. So when the first official poverty strategy was announced a couple of weeks back, I saw that they have not even assessed the yearly income needed to cover the living necessities. And if I go by the statistics of Canada, by 2015, an estimated 4.2 million people live below the poverty level. 4.2 million. Out of a population of 35 million, 4.2 million are the people who live below the poverty level. And then they said that they are going to have a new poverty line. It's easy to do, and they would reduce poverty from 2015 to 2019. Now, this is amazing. They take the statistics of 2015, announce the strategy in the third quarter of the year of 2018, and want to reduce the poverty in the next 1 year. And they have set aside $22 billion for this purpose. Set aside a figure, but from where would this $22 billion come? That is not mentioned. Another thing which amazes me is, is it a strategy to influence the elections and not reduce the poverty? The elections are due next year. So, all this noise about reduction of poverty can as well be a propaganda tool to ensure that the people who are suffering from poverty vote for this government, and they come back in power. The very reason that they have said by 2019 they'll reduce the poverty appreciably, reduce it by 50% by 2030, but they would set aside the figure for poverty reduction from 2015 to 2019. This is amazing. When quizzed, the response was, well, we are saying that 2019 we shall be able to decide what should be the poverty line. But then sending a wrong signal is possibly politically correct because it gives them votes, but it is ethically wrong and it's a malpractice, in fact. Then the second part of the strategy is that they'll set up a National Advisory Council on Poverty to advise the ministry and publicly report on the progress. So here is a second pitfall. National Advisory Council would be set, and they want the action to be completed by 2019. Now, the poverty line is decided by Stats Canada with the need of a new National Advisory Council. Evidently, bureaucracy would be bloated, and about a dozen people with the political affiliations of the Liberal Party would be appointed to the board of directors. Because the board of directors would mostly be those people who are not professionals. And even if they are professional, a new monolith, highly paid, would be created. And you would find the salaries of those people would be $200,000 in the vicinity of that per year. So a complete paraphernalia, a new complete department would be set up to reduce poverty. Yes, it would reduce poverty, but the people working in that setup. And then data would be published annually to show progress and give government, academics, and other insights to find out who is working, what needs to be changed to meet those ambitious targets. So when they are still thinking of setting up the National Advisory Council, when they want the data to be collected annually and then take an action, by that time, possibly they think they will not be there in the power, But the whole thing smacks of skullduggery. Whole thing smacks of myopia. Whole thing smacks of political wisdom to win seats, but not of national interest. And then he goes on to say that 20% reduction. Now, first they said 50% reduction, and now they said 20% reduction would mean that 900,000 people and 50% 2.1 million people. But they want to reduce poverty by 2020, 20% now they want. And by 2030, 50%. And one thing which comes up very nicely is that they'll change the definition of poverty. They'll change the poverty line. This is exactly what happened in India when the Planning Commission said that anybody getting $1 per day, $1.33 per day is not poor. While they knew that with that money they could not even buy a glass of beer in the open market. And there was quite a lot of noise on that. And then they said, well, this is the definition by which we are going. At present, the definition is much higher. So the best way, according to them, is to change the definition, and then the poverty automatically is reduced because those people will be earning more than that. The poverty line is always calculated using the market basket measure. That is the combined cost of the goods and services such as shelter, food, transportation, health. And those are the basic needs and a modest standard of living. And we call it the economists call it a market basket measure. The cost of this basket measure varies and reflects the varying cost of the items in almost more than 50 communities living across Canada. A family or an individual that does not have enough money to purchase this basket is poverty. Now, according to this, as per the prices and as per the income, a family of four that in that line ranges about $32,000 per year in parts of Quebec. But the market basket measure for Alberta is $40,777. So States Canada has that income to track the low income people. And there are informal lines, poverty lines, that have cautioned that they are not designed to measure poverty. And the government is adding here. One is that the low income measure which identifies people who earn half the national median income. And that is questionable because the communities spread over Canada, the 50 communities, and the vast country. There are differences in real estate, there are differences in the food prices, there are differences in the taxation structure. So you cannot have a national median income. Census data very clearly show that 4.8 million Canadians were considered low income in 2015. 4.8 million, and the government now says it's 4.2 million. So they have reduced the poverty already with the announcement by 0.6 million people. The percentage of the people in that category has increased to 14.2%. It was earlier 14%. So the strategy is more of an eyewash than the realistic about it. I am in favor of strategy. I'm supportive of it, but I want real strategy. I do not want something which is either politically motivated or is based on false premises. And the real economic principles have been given a go-by too. What we need is that the strategy announced is nothing more than an election campaign announcement and focuses mainly on coordinating funds already allocated to the creation of National Advisory Council. And that is what is shocking. And that is what is not acceptable. An election campaign in the name of removing poverty reminds me of the Indian Prime Minister, my Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, who said, "Garibi hatao," and the popularly people used to say, "Garibi hatao is remove poverty," and the people used to say, "It's not Garibi hatao, it's not remove poverty, it is remove the poor." Is Canadian government, the Liberal government, aiming to do that? I hold the Canadian government accountable for this skullduggery, which is meaningless and is just meant to throw dust in the eyes of the people. The sooner the people realize it, the better it would be. Thank you.